Well, tonight's question comes from YouTube user Moon and Mountain Lore. And she asks the question about foundation cards. And in particular, she wants to know what's the difference between the first type of foundation card that I introduced and the subject foundation card that I introduced second. And she also wants to know whether or not the index can serve as a subject foundation card. Well, these are some pretty good questions, and my feeling is that if one person has the question, then others might have the same question. So it's really worth taking the time to answer it as a podcast, as a video, rather than just putting the comment and the answer in the comments section itself of the YouTube video. So come on over to the down-facing camera, and I hope I can make this clear. See you over there. So let's start with what a foundation card is. A foundation card is a main card, but it's a special type of main card. You're probably familiar with the main card checklist, and that we always started with the main cards, with the regular main cards, with a thought or idea from the book or from the other source that we're reading. Then we always added our thoughts or our reactions, gave the bib card nickname so that we would know where the idea came from. We put a tagline at the top, and those components gave us a main card. So here's an example of our traditional main card. It contains information from the book that confidence does not create success. Prior success creates confidence. It's the other way around, which dispels negative emotions that destroy success. So that's the thought or idea from the book. And then it has my reactions, my reaction was, this feels as though success is the natural state, and the problem is how to stop ourselves from blocking success. Then it has the bib card nickname. This was from Dan Sullivan's Gap in the Game, and page 6 of that book. And then we added the tagline at the top, dispel negative emotions with past success. And then we filed it away. So this is your traditional main card. Your foundation main card differs in that it has another statement in the place of the thought or idea from the book. And I gave you a formula that you can use to build your foundation main cards. And I chose this formula for you in part because we're minimalist here, so I'm not giving you the full range of possible choices because I don't want you to overthink things. So what I've got here is a simple formula for a foundation card. I want to learn more about this so that my purpose. So the only difference between a regular main card and a foundation card, that you have this I want to learn so that takes the place of the thought or idea from the book. And therefore also the source is not going to be a big card name, but it's going to be a personal reflection on a certain date. And other than that, you're going to still have a reaction, feelings or reactions. You're still going to have your tagline at the top, and you're still going to file it. So let's take a look at one of these. Here, my I want to statement is, I want to learn more about business so that I can put LiLLiPub on a sound business footing. So that is a difference. Then I added my reaction. I've been an employee all my life. This is a whole new world for me. I want to build LiLLiPub into something that will outlive me. So the source is my thoughts and reflections. It went back to October 25th of 2024. And my tagline is, I want to set LiLLiPub up on a solid business foundation. So you can see how close in character a regular main card is compared to a foundation card. They're just about the same, but instead of something pulled from a book, I'm pulling it from my own thoughts. And instead of info from the book, I've got an I want to, so that statement. So now, what's the difference between the two kinds of foundation cards that I gave you? So here's where I introduce confusion, because there really is no difference between the two. They're both foundation cards, which is why I was so very, very glad Moon and Mountain Lore posted her question, because it gives me an opportunity to clear up where I was may have misled you. When you're setting up a foundation card, you're always debating with what thing is it that you want to read or study or know about, and then why do you want to do it? So they're really exactly the same. The only difference is the first one I had you make was for really big things, the whole core subject area that you're going to look into. So this one was an example of the whole core area. It was all about business. So here's an example that I gave you of the second go on creating a foundation card. It was my 2A, and it was talking about setting up realistic goals for a business. So it was a subject area within a business. But you can see that it's still basically the exact same format. I want to learn more about this subject area so that I can do something. So it's still, I want to learn about this so that I can do that. To make the whole thing make more sense, and so that you can see that these are really basically a foundation card, we need to take a look at why you create a foundation card. The whole purpose of a foundation card is to build a bridge to a new subject area that you're going to bring into the Zettelkasten. Now that new subject area could be a great big core area, like in my case I had faith, business, and how the mind works. Those were my 3 core areas. And then or it could be slightly smaller. It could be a subject area within the core area. And in my business area, I had goal setting, I had accounting, I had leadership, and I had social networking, community. So the subject area, it's really the same thing. It's just a smaller area. And in fact, they could even become smaller still. The whole idea is this. When you're starting out with an empty Zettelkasten and you want to place cards, what are they going to place with? What are they going to associate with? The whole idea of a Zettelkasten is that cards set up conversations. And I can show that with these 2 cards on business, where one is saying, I want to set up LiLLiPub on a sound business foundation. And the very next one says, realistic goals celebrated will fuel my business. So that's part of setting up LiLLiPub on a sound business foundation. And in fact, if I stack up all of the subject cards that I created, I can see that I've built a framework that I can attach individual cards to. And that is exactly what a foundation card does and why it has the name foundation. It's kind of like it's creating a framework that you can then put information onto. If you're in a Zettelkasten Beyond Your Wildest Dreams core, then we'll talk about possibly setting up categories instead of foundation cards. Those are different choices that you have. But in the Minimalist series, we're trying to put blinders on and keep it very, very simple. So I walked you through how to build a foundation card, and now I want you to understand when to build a foundation card. Basically, you'll build a foundation card whenever you have a main card that you want to add to your system, but it doesn't have anything to attach it to. Well, that's what you can build, is a foundation card that will give this card something to attach to. I hope I've answered your question. If I haven't, please ask again in the comments. I don't mind approaching it again. Because I'm hoping that I have eliminated some of the confusion that I created when I made you feel as though there were actually 2 different kinds of foundation cards. And I would say, no wonder you felt there were 2 kinds. I gave you 2 different work cards. My bad. I learned. I should just have 1 foundation card. Establish the area, ponder, and I will correct that. So thank you very much for that feedback. Now, there was a second question, which had to do with, isn't an index a foundation? And an index is a very important attribute, a very important box in your Zettelkasten. It serves 2 major roles. One role is when you have a card like this that you're trying to say, where will it go? You want to place it with whatever card is already in your Zettelkasten, where this will create the most interesting conversation along with that existing card. And so your index is a way of looking through your collection without having to pour through every individual card. When your Zettelkasten is as big as Zeke over here, you'd have to go through drawer after drawer after drawer. Can you imagine that? You get the picture. That would be a lot of pouring through to try to figure out, where does this card go? you'd be exhausted. But your index, which we created, lets you look things up by keyword, and so you can have a much better chance of figuring out where this card wants to go. For example, this card had keywords, dispel negative emotions with past success. So it could look up things like success, it could look up emotions, it could look up negativity. There are many different things, and you have this alphabetical index to help you find the very best place that that card could attach itself. And so that's one of the two very important functions of an index, is to help you place a new card by finding a card that is quite similar to it. Another very important aspect of it is helping you install these cards in your brain, because when you use this tagline and you index it repeatedly under every key term in that tagline, you kind of embed the card in your brain, and you're able to start thinking a card at a time. It turns out to be very powerful in making connections and associations, and very powerful in remembering what the cards that you've created in your Zettelkasten. And yet there's one more value to it as well, and that is if there's a card that you want to go back to, it's in the back of your mind, you know it's in your Zettelkasten somewhere, and you want to find it, an index is a great lookup opportunity. But the funny thing is, that third one is almost an add-on, because the reality is that when you're placing new cards, you'll stumble upon cards and they will be refreshed for you. And when you remember a card, chances are, if you've installed it properly, using all the key terms in the tagline, when you remember a card, that whole card will come back to mind in your memory, because that's what the tagline does, is it brings the whole card back to mind. So again, I hope I answered your second question, and if not, please ask again. And otherwise, enjoy creating your first minimalist Zettelkasten. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.